credit report disputes, we see it all the time. People come to us and say, how do I get this off? This is not me. This is an error. And really what I want to understand is what to dispute on your credit report and what not to dispute, because it's not the same thing. We just can't dispute every item. Let's start there, Josh.
Well, one important thing to know is just because it's negative or negatively impacting your credit doesn't mean that it's capable of being disputed. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act and most state variants of that federal law, the standard is complete and accurate. So if it is an accurately reported derogatory item, it's not available to be disputed. What you actually want to dispute are items you can verify are inaccurate. So you paid something off, but it's reported as open or past due. You paid it on time, but it's reported as paid late. Those type of items, you typically have that payment proof or can obtain it, and you want to dispute those items.
See, a lot of people think I need a clean credit report to have a high credit score. And we know that indisputably that's not the case. We have people with bankruptcies. We have people with foreclosures. We have people with 50 late payments have a 720, 750 credit score, right? So naturally people think I need to dispute everything on my credit report that's negative. So what we want to talk about right now is when you're doing a credit dispute, what do you dispute? You mentioned you dispute things that you can prove are inaccurate. So let's give some examples of things that are inaccurate.
Obviously, anything that is reported late or missed that you can prove you didn't pay late or you didn't miss that payment. Any accounts that aren't yours, any hard inquiries for things you didn't apply for, those can lead you to an additional investigation as to whether it may be identity theft or a mixed credit file, which you'll need to do a second investigation into some of your personal identifying information. Those things can be disputed as well. There's some additional steps when you get into disputing those items versus just a typical payment issue. But those are probably the most common.
Kyle, let's unpack this for a second. You have someone that has a late payment shown on the credit report. So you would have to show that this was paid. So you need like a canceled check or something coming out of the bank account showing payment on that example.
Yeah. So typically you can either go to the creditor's online portal and download some sort of payment history verification, or from your own bank account to show the date it was actually paid.
So that sounds like something that wouldn't happen that often. Does that I mean, you're a credit attorney. You look at credit reports all day long, 5 days, 6 days a week. Does that happen a lot where these companies just make a mistake?
It happens. It doesn't happen often. And usually they'll fix it if you reach out to them.
So let's talk about another credit dispute. We're talking about credit disputes, how to get them off and actually win, especially with the help with you. Your company does this for free as long as it's a legitimate error. The other one you're talking about is inquiries, right? How do you prove you didn't have an inquiry? Like is that like like a sworn testimony that I didn't apply for this Chase card or?
Sure. So if you see hard inquiries, and we're talking about hard inquiries versus soft inquiries, that is something you didn't apply for, the first thing you need to do is pull a full credit report, typically from annualcreditreport.com, because it includes all your personal identifying information, names, addresses, variations on date of birth, variations on Social Security. And the reason you want to look into those things is if there are hard inquiries for companies in which you did not apply, the chance of you being a victim of either a mixed credit file or identity theft victim are increased. So you want to see, as far as mixed credit file, are there name variations that are not mine?
Okay.
If you have a common surname, or if you are a junior or a senior or a second or a third, the chances of you having a mixed credit file are increased.
So a mixed credit file, just so we're clear, a mixed credit file is where you have someone else's credit on your credit report that's not yours. Maybe your name is, Angela Jones, and you have another Angela Jones credit report on your credit report, or sometimes it's with addresses, right? Like the address that you used to live at, someone's living there and it's mixing the credit file, right? Or someone with a similar Social Security number, whatever it is. But a mixed credit file is a credit report that's not yours, right?
Yes, it's when that creditor is reaching out to the credit bureau, they're providing, whether they're requesting information or trying to report information, they're providing the credit reporting agencies some of that personal identifying information, which they've been given to help the CRAs locate that file. The more common personal identifying information you have with another person, the higher chances the credit reporting agencies grab the wrong file and either the hard inquiry goes on the wrong file or that account from that other person goes into your credit file along with possibly their name spelling or their address, their social, other information.
So CRA is credit reporting agencies, just sort of there, credit reporting agencies.
Yes.
And in this description, we're not going to go through it right now because I want you to give me an exhaustive list, which I didn't ask you for in advance. I want you to give me every type of legitimate credit dispute that you've done before in the past. I mean, whether it's late payments, whether it's someone filed bankruptcy and the bankruptcy is not properly reflecting on it. Someone that has collections from the same collection company, improper inquiries, improper social security number, whatever these disputes are, we're going to have it here. And what I love and why I asked you on the program is you guys, Schumacher Lane, will actually review the credit report for your clients and dispute as long as they're legitimate. You will actually do the dispute free of charge. And what I really want to know, because it sounds too good to be true, why would a law firm do that? And what does this look like? So let's start with why. Like, why would you guys do it for free?
Sure. So under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Congress included what's called a fee shifting provision, which essentially means if we can prove an error in a complaint filed pursuant to that law, the opposing parties, whether it's the credit bureaus or the data furnisher creditors, would have to pay the attorney's fees and cost. So the intent here is to provide access, legal access to consumers that may otherwise try to do it on their own or not be able to hire an attorney. They can get an attorney and that attorney will take that case knowing that they can recoup their fees and costs from the bad actors in this case that are causing the harm.
Because reality, if they didn't have this provision, nobody who doesn't have money would ever sue the credit bureaus. Like, it would be an unfair advantage to the bid guy. The credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, have a team of lawyers, like a team, probably multiple teams, right? And all they do is deal with this. And the people who you are representing typically don't have the money to hire a lawyer to get one thing off. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, I think most people don't want to hire an attorney, even if they do have the money. We deal with a lot of recently discharged debtors, and
Debtors meaning clients have filed bankruptcy or something like that, right?
correct.
Yeah.
The bankruptcy process alone lends itself to a lot of complex credit reported issues that creditors don't know how to report accurately. Credit bureaus aren't sure how to report accurately with accounts surrounding the bankruptcy. And so that within itself, people coming out of bankruptcy, typically the last thing they want to do is pay another attorney to help them fix their credit.
Well, and this is the teeth of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I mean, and this is why the credit bureaus and the creditors follow the law, because if they don't, it's going to be extremely expensive for them. When you have a dispute and you're helping a client with a credit dispute, you send out the certified letters to let them know, hey, this needs to be fixed. And 90% of the time, if not more, it gets fixed, right?
Right.
And no lawsuits required. So you make your money on those 10% of the times where a lawsuit is required, and that's when you can recoup your attorney fees. But 90% of the time, you're doing it, and it just gets fixed on its own, right?
Correct.
And
Most disputes, because when you send the dispute to the credit reporting agency, you have both the credit reporting agency and then the furnisher creditor both conducting an investigation where they're supposed to under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So the chances that both of them conduct a bad investigation or don't do anything at all, and that inaccuracy remains is fairly low.
So if someone has a dispute and watching this video, right, and one of the disputes are going to be listed, we're going to have a link in this video because you want them to follow a process. You just can't have people call up Schumacher Lane and say, "Hey, can you dispute for me?" It's a process because you have to weed out a lot of like people that just don't follow into the criteria. They set up an appointment. We'll meet with one of your representatives. You're going to run their credit together, right? And you're gonna need for a legitimate dispute is proof that this is not done, right? Like something is wrong. Is that right? What type of things are you looking for?
For a client that recently filed bankruptcy, we could obtain most of the documents online through Pacer.
Okay.
But what we need from those clients is if they were Chapter 13, did they have a mortgage or a car that they purchased right before filing? Or if they're at Chapter 7, are there any reaffirmed accounts?
Okay.
Everything else we can essentially do review from the bankruptcy documents and the credit reports themselves.
Okay.
For consumers that did not recently file bankruptcy, we need really their input because they know their credit. If I look at a random person's credit report and I see hard inquiries, I don't have any way of knowing they did not apply for those accounts.
Yes.
If I see a derogatory account, I have no way of knowing that that may be not theirs and pursuant to some sort of identity theft or fraud.
So you're gonna get feedback from the consumer. They're gonna give it to you. You're gonna ask them for proof. I want to make it clear what this is not is I have a 30-year late payment from 3 years ago. I want to get that off my credit report. Let me dispute it. If you dispute those, it's going to be, and you don't have proof. They're going to mark your credit as frivolous or these frivolous disputes, and you're not going to get the same attention. Like you do not want, seen this too many times. People take our templates and they just dispute everything. Wrong move, right? I mean, you're the attorney. I just know this from experience. What do you want to say about that? People that dispute everything.
Right. If you dispute things that you can't verify, it lessens the chance that those real inaccuracies that you may be able to verify actually get corrected. Because when a credit reporting agency receives a dispute that just disputes any and every negative thing in the credit report, they can deem it a frivolous dispute. Or, which another thing that happens commonly is repeated disputes on the same item over just flooding the mail with the same dispute on the frivolous item. They will eventually just stop doing any investigation, and that's completely legal on their end.
I mean, this is why credit repair companies have such a bad rap. I mean, it's like, oh, I'm going to send out letters on your behalf. And they send out letters. People think credit repair, you got to send out letters and all this stuff. That's not the case, right? In the course that we give our clients 7 steps to a 720 credit score, it's really simple. There's 3 steps to raising your credit score. I don't care how bad your credit is. Number 1, get the errors off the credit report. Introduction to Schumacher Lane per this video. Number 2, get 3 new lines of credit so you can establish new credit around the bad credit. And 3, get some type of installment line, a payment that's reported the same for a set period of time. You can look down at the links below, give you all those details, but it's all right there. It's really simple. We've had clients raise their credit score after bankruptcy, after foreclosure, after a short sale, you name it, 50 late payments, get a 720 credit score, 12 months with all those late payments and with the bankruptcy on the credit report, right? So we work with Josh and his partner Kyle at Schumacher Lane because this is another service that we offer for free to our clients so that you can learn the truth about cleaning up your credit, you credit report disputes for free. And it's just part of the process that we do. Actually, I just thought of one thing. There are cases when you dispute something, most of the time they get fixed. When you do settle lawsuits, sometimes the clients actually participate in the fees too, because the lawsuit's so big, right?
Sure. So any amount of in most cases settle. That's true with all litigation. In these cases, typically you're trying to get either actual damages or statutory damages. It gets a little more complex as to how to prove each one in the actual lawsuit. But essentially, actual damages would be if you've actually been denied employment, an apartment, a mortgage, credit card, And that denial letter cites the specific reasons that we can tie to the inaccuracy. It's got to be able to be tied to that inaccuracy, but those can be actual damages. And of course, from there, you can try to grow those actual damages and cover those in the lawsuit. Statutory fees under the Fair Credit Reporting Act are $100 to $1,000. And so oftentimes correcting the credit report is the number one reason for the client to file that lawsuit, because long term, and you can speak to the numbers on this, long term, that raised credit score from the credit error being removed is going to save them tons more in interest and payments.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's day and night. What's the biggest credit payout you've ever seen?
Like our firm personally, probably close to 100,000.
All because for an error.
Correct. That was on a identity theft case.
And identity theft case. And the client, what did they receive for the identity theft?
Well, we got 3 incorrect accounts removed from all 3 credit bureaus. And I think they received right around 70,000 of that.
So they suffered identity theft. They got their credit report cleaned up and they got a check for $70,000.
Right.
Okay. Thanks for being on. We're going to do more of these videos.